Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Hey, my name is Sarah. I used to have it all, the perfect marriage, a house you see in magazines, and enough money to buy whatever I wanted. But one night at a bar messed everything up. I'm sitting in the kitchen, staring at the shiny marble countertop. Tom was obsessed with everything being perfect. He said it showed who we were, polished and untouchable. But I felt far from perfect. I felt like I was drowning. This house was beautiful, sure, but it wasn't a home. Felt like a fancy display, impressive, but cold. Nothing in it really felt like mine. I was surrounded by expensive stuff. 5 bedrooms, a pool that seemed to go on forever, and a city view people would kill for. Tom worked his butt off for all of it, and I kept telling myself I should be grateful. But what good is all this fancy stuff if it feels like a pretty prison? I quit my job at the clothing store when we got married. Tom promised I wouldn't need to work, that he'd take care of me, and he did. Fancy vacations, designer clothes, a new car every couple of years. From the outside, it looked like a dream. But that store was my own little piece of freedom. Now, I just wandered from one perfect room to another, trying to fill the quiet. I tried painting, yoga, even gardening, but nothing stuck. The gardener took care of my roses, just like everything else in my life, not really mine. Tom didn't get it. He thought money could fix anything. When I told him I felt lost, he'd buy me things. A necklace, a weekend trip. "You deserve the best," he'd say with that easy smile of his. And for a second, I'd believe him. But no matter how many gifts he gave, the emptiness stayed, a dull ache under all the shiny stuff. Because what I really wanted, what I really needed, couldn't be bought. Lately, I'd been going out at night, not to do anything crazy, just to get away from the house. The walls felt like they were closing in, the silence getting heavier every day, like the whole place was swallowing me. Tom didn't ask too many questions when I left. I'd tell him I was meeting friends, and he'd just nod, busy with emails or some deal he was working on. Maybe he didn't care where I went as long as I came back, or maybe he thought his money and his love had already given me everything I could ever want. Most nights, I didn't actually meet anyone. I'd just drive with the windows down, letting the night air rush over me, or I'd end up at this quiet little bar downtown. It wasn't anything special, just dim lights, old wooden floors, and a jukebox in the corner that never seemed to get played. But it was peaceful. No one there knew me as Tom's wife, and for a little while I could just sit, breathe, and think. That's where I met Jake. It was a quiet Tuesday night, the kind where the world feels like it's slowing down, waiting for something to happen. The bar was almost empty, just the bartender wiping down glasses, a couple whispering in the corner, and me with a glass of wine I wasn't really drinking. Then he walked in. There was something easy about him, a quiet confidence that made it seem like he belonged anywhere. He wasn't dressed like Tom or Tom's fancy friends. No perfect suit, no expensive watch, just a simple, worn leather jacket over a faded t-shirt. He looked around, taking in the room like he knew it, before sitting down a couple of seats away from me and ordering a beer. I hadn't planned on talking to him. I wasn't looking for anything. But then he smiled, and for a second, it felt like he could see right through me. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice warm and gentle. I let out a soft laugh, even though nothing was really funny. Something like that. He nodded like he understood without me having to explain. Yeah, sometimes you just need to get away. Maybe it was the quiet of the bar, or the way he didn't push. But before I knew it, I was telling him things I hadn't said out loud in ages. I talked about the house, how beautiful but empty it felt, about Tom, about how I had everything I was supposed to want. Yet somehow, I felt like I was fading into the background of my own life. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't say how lonely I was or how some days I wanted to scream just to see if anyone would hear me. But I said enough. And Jake listened, really listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix anything, didn't tell me how lucky I was or that things would get better. He just let me talk. And when I finally went quiet, he just said, "Sounds like you've got a lot on your plate." It wasn't much, but somehow it was exactly what I needed. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. We talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. He told me he worked in construction, that he liked building things with his hands. He mentioned he'd been through some tough times too, though he didn't go into detail and I didn't ask. Some things don't need to be said to be understood. When I finally looked at my phone, it was past midnight. Panic hit me. I was sure Tom would be furious. But when I got home, he was already asleep. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about Jake. Not in a romantic way. Or at least that's what I told myself. It was just nice to talk to someone who didn't expect anything from me. Someone who didn't try to fix me. I started going to the bar more often. Sometimes Jake was there, sometimes he wasn't. When he was, we'd talk. When he wasn't, I'd sit alone and think about how my life had become something I barely recognized. I know what you're thinking. I know exactly how this sounds. But it wasn't like that, at least not at first. I wasn't looking for an affair. I wasn't trying to hurt Tom. I just needed something real, a connection, a reminder that I was still a person. Not just a wife, not just a trophy, not just another perfectly placed object in a carefully arranged life. But the more time I spent with Jake, the more I started to wonder, what if life isn't meant to feel this empty? What if I don't have to wake up every morning feeling like I'm fading away? I don't have the answers yet. All I know is that something has to change, because if I keep living like this, I'll lose myself completely, and I don't know if I'll ever find my way back. It happened on a rainy Thursday night. I told Tom I was meeting friends for dinner, but instead, I went to the bar, the same bar where I'd met Jake. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see him or if I just needed to sit in a place where I could breathe. But when I walked in and saw him already there, waiting for his drink, something inside me settled. He smiled when he saw me. "Rough day." I nodded, sliding onto the stool beside him. Something like that. We talked for a while about nothing, about everything. I told him I used to love painting but hadn't picked up a brush in years. He told me about a cabin he was building with his own hands, a place far from the city where things felt simple and real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere, even if it was just in that moment, in that conversation. When the bar started to empty, he hesitated before speaking. "Come with me." I should have said no. I should have gotten up, gone home, and crawled into bed beside my husband. But I didn't. Instead, I followed Jake outside, the rain misting over us as we walked to his truck. He drove us to his place, a small, unfinished apartment above a workshop, cluttered but warm. It smelled like sawdust and coffee, like something lived in, something real. Neither of us said anything as he reached for me. He didn't rush, didn't pull. I could have stepped away, could have left, but I didn't. I let him kiss me, and when his hands slid over my skin, when he whispered my name like it was something precious, something worth saying, I didn't stop him. It was an amazing feeling. Unlike Tom, Jake was rough in bed. He made me do things I never imagined I would try with Tom. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, not for what I represented, not for the perfect image I was supposed to maintain, just for me. I don't know what this means. I don't know what comes next. All I know is that I can't go back to the way things were. I've made up my mind. I don't want Tom anymore. This man in bed with me will save me from Tom, and he is my knight in shining armor. Now let's see it from Tom's side. I stood in the driveway, hands in my pockets, staring at the house I worked so hard to buy. It was a beautiful house, the kind of place I used to dream about when I was a kid. 5 bedrooms, a pool, a breathtaking view of the city. It's everything I thought we wanted, everything I thought she wanted. But now it felt like a stranger's house, like I was just a guest in my own life. I bought this house before we got married, wanting to prove to Sarah that I could take care of her, that I could give her the life she deserved. I still remember the way her face lit up the first time I brought her here, how she ran from room to room, laughing, talking about how we'd decorate, how we'd make it ours. I thought it was the beginning of something amazing. When she decided to quit her job at the store, I supported her, told her she didn't have to work if she didn't want to. I figured she just needed time to figure out her next step, to find her passion. I never wanted her to feel pressured. I just wanted her to be happy. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. First, I didn't notice. I was caught up in work, closing deals, making sure our future was secure. I thought everything was fine. Then Sarah started pulling away. She'd spend hours in the house, but it was like she wasn't really there. She stopped talking about decorating, stopped talking about anything. Really, I tried to fix it the only way I knew how, with gifts, a new necklace, a weekend getaway, a car. I thought maybe she just needed a little excitement, a reminder of how much I loved her. But no matter what I did, it never seemed to make a difference. Then she started going out at night. She told me she was meeting friends, but she never mentioned who. She'd come home late, quiet, distant. Sometimes she'd come home smelling like wine, her excuses weak and vague. Just catching up, she'd say, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to believe her, told myself I was overthinking it, that she just needed space. But the distance between us kept growing. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I don't know what came over me. I've never been the kind of guy to snoop, but something snapped. My hands were shaking as I picked it up and opened her messages. And there they were, texts from someone named Jake. At first, they seemed harmless, casual. But the more I scrolled, the more my stomach sank. Last night was amazing. Love the way you screamed. My bed is still a mess. My chest tightened, and I had to sit down. I read the messages over and over, hoping I'd misunderstood, hoping there was some explanation. But there wasn't. My family had warned me, told me Sarah wasn't the right fit for me, that she didn't understand the life I was building, but I didn't listen. I was too blinded by love to see it. I put the phone back where I found it and just sat there staring at the wall. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, demand answers, but another part of me wasn't ready to hear the truth. I don't know what hurts more, the betrayal or the fact that I never saw it coming. thought we were happy, thought I was giving her everything she needed, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe I never really understood her at all. Now I'm standing here in the driveway, staring at the house that was supposed to be our dream. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can forgive her or if I even want to. All I know is that the life I worked so hard to build is falling apart, and I have no idea how to stop it. Now let's see Sarah's side again. I pulled into the driveway for what I knew would be the last time. The house stood before me, cold and lifeless, a monument to everything I was leaving behind. No hesitation, no second thoughts. I marched upstairs, grabbed the suitcase from the closet, and started packing. Clothes, shoes, whatever I could fit. I didn't need much, just enough to start over. The rest of it I'd come back for later. When I finished, I dragged my bags down the stairs and out the front door. Jake was waiting by his truck, the engine humming softly. He didn't say anything, just opened the back and helped me load my things. I could feel Tom behind me before he even spoke. "Going somewhere?" he said. I turned to face him, lifting my chin. "Yeah, I'm leaving." He glanced at the truck, then back at me, arms crossed. With him? With a real man, someone who actually sees me. Tom let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "You're leaving me for this?" He gestured at Jake, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Come on, Sarah. You're smarter than that." His arrogance made my blood boil. He wasn't even angry. Not really. He was amused, like I was some silly little thing throwing a tantrum. "You're a loser, Tom. You think money makes you better than everyone else? That buying me things was enough." I took a step closer, my voice sharp. "You never loved me. You just wanted a wife who looked good on your arm. Well, I'm done playing that role." Tom smirked, hands still in his pockets. "Well, good luck with that." That was it. No argument, no fight, just that smug, dismissive smirk. My nails dug into my palms. How could he be so indifferent? Didn't he care at all? I clenched my jaw, my voice shaking with fury. "You will regret this, Tom." But as I put my things into Jake's truck, all I felt was relief. Jake leaned against the truck, watching me with that calm, steady gaze of his. He didn't say much. He never really had to. He'd been my rock through all of this, the one person who made me feel alive again. I know people will judge me for moving in with him so soon, but they don't understand. They don't know what it's like to feel invisible in your own life. Behind me, the house loomed, cold, perfect, just like Tom. I glanced at it one last time before climbing into the truck. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything. The divorce was going to be messy. I knew Tom wasn't the type to let go without a fight, but I wasn't worried. The mediator would see the truth. I gave up everything for that marriage, my job, my independence, my dreams. I sacrificed it all to support Tom and his career. I'd already spoken to my lawyer. She said I had a strong case. The court would consider the fact that I left my job to be a full-time wife, that I contributed to the marriage in ways that don't show up on a bank statement. I was entitled to my fair share, maybe even more. Jake agreed. He said I deserved to be happy, that I'd spent too long living in Tom's shadow. He'd been so supportive, helping me plan everything, making sure I had a fresh start. We'd even talked about what our life would look like once the divorce was final. A smaller house, something cozy and real, maybe even a family someday. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't just Tom's wife anymore. I was Sarah, and I was finally free. Now let's see Tom's side. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the stack of papers on the counter, bank statements, receipts, emails, every financial transaction from the last 5 years, carefully documented. I spent weeks putting this together, and now it was all here laid out in black and white. She thought she was clever, thought she could just walk away with half of everything I built. But she didn't know me as well as she thought she did. I found out about Jake weeks ago. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Told myself it was just a fling, a distraction, something she'd regret and move on from. But then I started digging. It wasn't hard. Sarah wasn't as careful as she thought she was. I found the texts, the emails, the receipts for the hotel rooms. But what really got me, what made my blood run cold, was the plan. She and Jake had been planning this for months. This wasn't just an affair. They were building a future with my money. I found the messages. They weren't just talking about being together. They were planning a whole new life, selling the house, splitting the assets, starting over somewhere new. Jake even joked about how he'd finally be able to quit his job once the divorce settlement came through. That's when I knew I couldn't just let this go. I always been the one to take care of things, the house, the bills, the vacations. Everything was on me. Sarah never had to worry about a thing. And now she wanted to act like she sacrificed her life for me, like she was entitled to half of everything I built. She didn't sacrifice anything. I'd been documenting everything, every dollar I spent, every bill I paid, every investment I made. I had proof. Proof that I paid for the house, the cars, the vacations. I even found the paperwork showing I covered her credit card debt when we got married. The mediator was going to see the truth. When Sarah moved out, I didn't say much. I let her think I was too hurt to fight back. But now, as I looked at the evidence in front of me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: calm. Months later, I sat at the courtroom table, my hands steady, my face unreadable. Across from me, Sarah sat with Jake. He was there, bold as ever, leaning back in his chair like this was all just some game. He smirked at me like he'd already won. I didn't react. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. I wasn't about to let either of them rattle me. The judge called the room to order, and Sarah's lawyer started first. She painted Sarah as the victim, talked about how she gave up her career for our marriage, how she sacrificed her independence to support me. It was a good performance. I'll give her that, but I knew the truth. And soon so would the judge. When it was my turn, I rose from my seat, my lawyer at my side. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly. Your Honor, I have no intention of disrespecting Sarah or the time we spent together. But the facts tell a very different story than the one her lawyer just presented. I handed over the first set of documents: bank statements, receipts, financial records. These show that I paid for everything during our marriage: the house, the cars, the vacations, even Sarah's personal expenses. She didn't contribute financially, not because I didn't want her to, but because she chose not to. I supported her decision to leave her job, thinking she just needed time to find her path. But that path never came. The judge flipped through the documents, nodding occasionally. I could feel Sarah's eyes on me now, but I didn't look at her. Couldn't. I also have evidence, I continued, that Sarah has been in a relationship with Jake for several months. These text messages and emails prove that while we were still married, they were already planning their future together. They even discussed how they would use the assets from this divorce to start their new life. I handed over another folder, this one filled with screenshots and printouts. The judge took it, flipping through the pages from Sarah's side of the room. I heard a faint gasp. I glanced at Jake. For the first time, his smirk was gone. My final piece of evidence, I said, proves that Sarah moved in with Jake before we even filed for divorce. This premature cohabitation not only violates the terms of our separation agreement, but also shows a clear intent to manipulate this process for their own gain. The courtroom fell silent. Even Sarah's lawyer looked uncomfortable. The judge looked up, her expression firm. The evidence presented by Mr. Goodman is clear and leaves no room for doubt. It is evident that he has been the sole financial provider in this marriage, and that Mrs. Goodman's actions have been deceptive and self-serving. She paused, her gaze shifting to Sarah. Mrs. Goodman, your affair and premature cohabitation have undermined your claims in this case. The court cannot reward behavior that violates the principles of good faith in a divorce proceeding. Therefore, the court rules as follows. Mr. Goodman will retain full ownership of the marital home and all significant assets acquired during the marriage. Mrs. Goodman will receive only the legally mandated minimum settlement with no additional compensation or spousal support. I exhaled slowly. Relief washed over me. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue, but the judge cut her off. The facts speak for themselves. I glanced at Sarah. She looked pale, her hands clenched in her lap. Jake leaned over to whisper something to her, but she shook her head, her face tight with anger. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of pity, but then I remembered the texts, the lies, the way she and Jake laughed about using my money to build their future. The pity faded. When the hearing ended, I walked out of the courtroom with my head held high. I didn't yell. I didn't lose my temper, and I didn't let their smirks or taunts get under my skin. I let the truth stand on its own, and in the end, that was enough. Outside the courthouse, my lawyer shook my hand. You handled that perfectly, he said. Thanks, I replied, though my voice was weary. As I walked to my car, a mix of emotions settled over me. Relief, yes, but also sadness. This isn't how I wanted things to end. I once loved Sarah, and in some ways I still do, but the woman I loved is gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I slid into the driver's seat and gripped the steering wheel, staring at it for a long moment. This didn't feel like a victory, just the closing of a chapter, but at least now I could begin writing the next one on my own terms. Now let's see Sarah's side. I sat on the edge of the couch in Jake's cramped apartment, staring at the pile of bills on the coffee table. The numbers blurred together, but the reality was clear. I didn't have enough to cover them. Not even close. This isn't how it was supposed to go. When I left Tom, I believed I'd be walking away with half of everything: the house, the savings, the life we built together. I thought I was entitled to it. My lawyer assured me I had a strong case, that the court would recognize the sacrifices I made for our marriage. But the judge didn't see it that way. Instead of the financial security I expected, I walked out of that courtroom with next to nothing. No house, no spousal support, just a small settlement that barely covered my legal fees. And Jake, he wasn't the man I thought he was. Once it became clear that the money wasn't coming, his true colors emerged. He'd grown distant, spending more time out with his friends and less time with me. The other night, He came home drunk and snapped at me for not contributing enough. I wanted to scream, to remind him that this was his idea too, that he was the one who promised we'd build a life together. But I didn't. I just sat there biting my tongue because deep down, I knew he was right. I gave up everything for a man who never even respected me. Now the whispers have started. People from our old social circle know about the affair, how I left Tom for Jake. My reputation is in ruins. Friends I once trusted won't return my calls, and even potential employers seem to judge me the moment they hear my name. I thought I was escaping a cage, but instead, I built a new one. And this time, I'm not sure I'll ever break free. Now let's see Tom's side. I sat on the back patio, strumming my guitar as the sun set over the city. The house was quiet, peaceful for the first time in years. Finally felt like home again. The courtroom battle was brutal, but it was worth it. I kept the house, my savings, and most importantly, my dignity. Sarah walked away with the bare minimum. And while I took no joy in seeing her lose, I couldn't deny the relief in knowing she and Jake didn't get what they wanted. Through it all, my family had been my anchor. They warned me about Sarah from the start, but never once said, "I told you so." Instead, they stood by me, helping me rebuild. My sister even convinced me to pick up the guitar again, something I hadn't done since college. It's strange how something as simple as music can help you heal. I'd also started going to the gym. At first, it was just a way to burn off the anger and frustration, but now it had become part of my routine. I felt stronger, not just physically but mentally. This experience had taught me so much about myself. I ignored so many red flags with Sarah because I wanted to believe in the life we were building. I wanted to believe that love would be enough, but now I knew better. Love isn't enough if it's one-sided. I wasn't bitter, though. If anything, I was grateful. Grateful that I saw the truth before it was too late. Grateful for this second chance to create a life that's truly mine. I started dating again cautiously. I was in no rush, but I was open to the idea of finding someone who valued me for who I am, not just what I could provide. Someone who saw me as a partner, not a paycheck. As I sat there strumming my guitar, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The toxic weight of my marriage was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Now let's see Sarah's side again. I never thought it would end like this. Not after everything I gave up. Not after everything I lost. When the divorce was finalized, I thought I was free. I thought I had chosen something better, someone better. But the moment I signed those papers, the moment there was nothing left tying me to Tom, Jake changed. First, it was small things. He started staying out later, coming home smelling like cheap beer and perfume I didn't wear. He stopped pretending to listen when I talked, rolling his eyes whenever I tried to tell him how I felt. And then one night, I came home to find my suitcases. My same damn suitcases from the night I left Tom, sitting outside his front door. My clothes, my shoes, everything I had left was thrown carelessly onto the porch like trash. I pounded on the door, my heart hammering. He didn't even make me wait. He opened it with that same lazy smirk that used to make me melt, but now it just made me sick. "What the hell is this?" I asked. "Your stuff. Thought I'd save you the trouble. You're kicking me out?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. After everything, he leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "Look, sweetheart. Let's not pretend this was something it wasn't. You were fun for a while, but I was never in this for love." The world tilted. I felt like I was falling, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. "What are you talking about?" He laughed, a low, careless chuckle that made my stomach turn. "I was here for the money, Sarah, not for you." His eyes flicked over me, bored. "Love, please. I can get that on the streets for $10. I felt like I'd been slapped. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. Jake clapped me on the shoulder like I was somebody at a bar. "Take care of yourself." "Yeah." Then he shut the door in my face. I stood there for a long time, long enough for the night air to sink into my skin, for the weight of my stupidity to settle deep in my bones. I thought I had escaped a cage, but all I'd done was walk into another one where I was worth even less. I left town the next day. There was nothing left for me there. No marriage, no love, no future. Just shame. Now, I'm back at my parents' house, sleeping in my childhood bedroom like some failed version of myself. I'm trying to rebuild, to understand how I let this happen. I'm trying to forgive myself. I'm in therapy now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.